One.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast offers bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. My name is Ray Tampa. I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio Mr. Russell Cato, a retired educator with more than 42 years of experience working in the Pinellas County schools, and Mr. Jamie Wilson III, a healthcare provider with more than 30 years working as a physical therapist. My co-host, my dynamic co-host. Today, we're very fortunate to have in our studio Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy, ELIHU Brayboy, and his wife, Carolyn. Mr. Brayboy and Mrs. Brayboy, they've been on our show before, and they did an excellent job, and we're so excited to have them here again. But nevertheless, there are some people that may not have seen that show, and I want them to know who Mr. Brayboy is. So, Mr. Brayboy, tell our audience a little about yourself, such as where were you born, raised, and educated?
That's not a short story, but but I was born in Wahiawa, Hawaii, because my father from St. Petersburg and my mother, who had just gotten married, was civil service employees after the Pearl Harbor attack. So the first 3 years of my life was in Hawaii. And then I was raised by my grandparents because my parents divorced when I was 3. Well, I was raised by my grandparents predominantly in South Louisiana. So that's where I got my Creole and Cajun understanding from. And came to St. Petersburg as a 12-year-old and met my wife very soon thereafter when living in St. Pete. But she went to Gibbs High School, and I went to Bishop Barry, which was the recently integrated Catholic high school. My class before me was like Jamerson, Douglas Jamerson. Well, a lot of buildings are named after here. He was the first class, and I was the second class to integrate in St. Petersburg. So going forward, I went to Bethune-Cookman College at that time, now Bethune-Cookman University, and very happy I did go to that historical Black college school experience. After going to integrated school, I couldn't wait to get to historical Black college, okay? So studied business administration, and that was a teacher college. That's known for putting out teachers, but I said, I don't want to be a teacher. So I want to study business. And so I studied business administration at Bethune-Cookman, and been pursuing business ventures ever since. I really loved it. My guidance professor there was Mr. Charles Cherry. Mr. Cherry at the time was the president of the NAACP. He owned the Black newspaper called the Daytona Times. And he owned his own accounting business, and he was a professor at the school. So that was a role model for me.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the information you just shared, and obviously you have an extensive bit of history in your background, interesting history. But I want to move on to why you're here today. Several news outlets, including the Catalyst News, the Tampa Bay Times, Florida Rising, and others, reported on Mayor Welch identifying his choice to develop the property at 951 22nd Street South. The former owner, you and your wife, submitted an RFP and was denied. Mr. Brayboy, share with us comments about that whole process from beginning to end.
Wow. First of all, the whole process was we submitted a proposal in August of 2024. The storms came shortly. The deadline for proposal deadline was like the next month, and I believe that's when we had the storms. So they shut the RFP down and did another 30-day extension. All right. I was told on that first submission that maybe we were the only proposals that had been submitted. But when they did the extension, then two additional bidders arrived on the scene. And the one that the mayor ultimately selected was a firm that evidently he had a history with, because they have a project also here in St. Pete near the post office, main post office building. So they're not new to St. Pete, but they're out of South Florida. So my confusion, though, Ray, was in a meeting that we had with the mayor directly when he told us about his plans of DEI. He says, I intentionally will make sure that the African American community gets a chance to participate in the growth of St. Petersburg. I will do it intentionally. So you may not be the best proposal, but we will make sure that the people of St. Pete benefit from his legacy. And so I was very optimistic in my submission. There's a $250 application fee. Then the submission was extended, but when they finally announced, they did no formal announcement. I got a phone call from him telling me that he had selected this firm out of South Florida, and he may have spent the maximum of about 5 minutes with me on the phone as I was trying to explain to him how disappointed I was in his decision. But it seemed to have no bearings on his desire to go forward with the firm out of South Florida.
Now, you made a statement relative to what Mayor Welch said relative to intentional equity or intentional participation, et cetera, et cetera. In the article that I read, a similar statement was made by the mayor. What he said was that we want to make sure, and this is verbatim, we want to make sure progress is inclusive and the entire community gets to participate. Do you think this was just another bullshit statement?
Well, let me put it this way. The city did several workshops asking the residents of the 22nd Street and corridor what would they like to see in the future. And they put a priority on home ownership, not low-income rental apartments. They know that the turnaround of this community requires stakeholders.
Right.
I'm not against low-income rental property, but that's transient residents. They hear 1 week,
Short term,
and 4 months later they move on somewhere else because of their situations and circumstances. Wherein homeowners in South St. Petersburg, at least the history has been, the Black community, when they buy a home, they keep that home for a long period of time. They're not flippers by nature. They're buy and hold. And I thought that was going to be, my proposal was condominiums, because we have a land shortage. So I was going to take advantage of the airspace, going 5 stories, 7 stories tall, and condominiums where people could own their turf, own their space. And unfortunately, he chose to go with a firm that was going to deal with, the lowest, what they call income basis. The lower the income basis, the more the units. Wherein that's the last thing we need. We need a mix of income people. That's what 22nd Street and every African American neighborhood in the world. We need a mix of incomes. We don't need just one income group.
right.
And that's what has been hurting St. Petersburg right now, hurting Southside St. Petersburg, is everything that's going towards catering to meeting the needs of one income group.
Okay, thank you for that. Jay, anything?
No, I agree. If you get it averaged out, it helps the lower. The high helps the lower, the middle. Everybody's helps everybody out when you have a different denominations of rents or whatever, or mortgages, so to speak.
Right. So I understand the proposal he has accepted is going to be over 50 some units right next door to the some 93 units we already have at Jordan Park. So there was no shortage of available affordable housing in that block. Now, when you put this overload of more low-income housing, what you're doing for the future of this community is that you're producing too much of the same thing. And we have, those of us who have age on us, Jamie, that's excluding you, but these other two gentlemen here, they know what happened when we overload a neighborhood with one income group of people. It happened in Chicago. It happened in Oakland. It happened in most major New Orleans. We had too many poor people in one space.
Get a project.
It becomes a project.
Project.
Instead of housing development, it becomes a housing project.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, this decision is catering to that mindset.
Right.
The people are just pawns. They're
Right.
going to live wherever they can afford to live.
Exactly.
But the idea of a neighborhood development,
Mhm.
how do you prosper a neighborhood?
Mhm.
Once you have enough of one group, you got to get the mixture.
Right.
And by the way, the mayor is not ignorant to this. He supports Joe Frost, who's a developer out of South Florida, who owns property on the 22nd Street corridor, more towards the First Avenue South area, and he's supporting a mixed use development for that developer, because that developer knows the future is about mixed use
Mhm.
and mixed income.
And that's how you get appreciation.
That's how you get appreciation. You want to lower the values of a neighborhood, overload it with a whole bunch of low income housing,
You get a
and
giant
you will tank the values.
ghetto.
Russ, you got anything?
Well, I was listening to Brayboy talk, but when I look at Welch and his philosophy, he has something called inclusive program. You understand?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find out if what you are saying and what you're saying about Welch, how does he move with this thing? We ran on inclusive progress, partners for progress. And he said inclusive progress exactly the way that we should go. Now, what is inclusive progress?
Well, evidently it means going down to South Florida, getting a white dominant white orange firm and bring them and put them right in the heart of a black-owned, historical
Okay.
black-owned neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay, now you've messing with the culture, really, because the culture, 22nd Street culture included Italians,
Mhm.
Jewish, and blacks.
Mhm.
And the Jewish and the black people were forced to do business on 22nd Street because they weren't allowed to do business anywhere
Where
else
else?
in the city.
Right.
And then when the Jewish people got the freedom to go anywhere they want, it left a black community lacking. In fact, this whole integration era took a thriving black community
Mhm.
and weakened it,
Mhm.
because we took all of the professionals out of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
We took all of the schools and closed them down. We took we done things that would destroy you. No more grocery stores. The mom and pop grocery stores couldn't survive. You bring this big giant like a Walgreens, a Walmart, stick them in there, which is the death of all the mom and pops at that point.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then they leave.
Right.
And so you got you didn't even get a secure agreement with them to stay.
Mhm.
But they paying their rent. I understand they still pay their rent, and the city's still taking their money instead of holding them to the original obligation.
Right.
So I think what we have now is a city government led by an individual who really may not understand what it takes to develop a prosperous black community. We talk about
Mhm.
we want to do a new Wall Street,
Mhm.
type black neighborhood
Mhm.
like they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But there were some conditions there that allowed that to happen,
Mhm.
which is people fed into each other, which is what we were doing in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s
Mhm.
and the 60s.
Mhm.
We fed each other. That dollar circulated in South St. Pete
Right.
about 3 or
The
4
community.
times before it left the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Now you got to hopefully that you can catch $1 before it leaves the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So until we got services to offer and businessmen and women trying to provide those services in the community appreciating those services, we are heading into a desolate future.
Right. Right.
No grocery stores.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Star-
I'm sorry. I just
Starved
I'm-
of resource. Starved of
Well,
resources.
Bray, let me ask you this, and you're saying something that is very, very strong. If you look at segregation and you look at integration, I will always say, and maybe not good to say it, but segregation is one of the things that helped us tremendously with black businesses. Truly they did. If you go back and look at 22nd Street, you go back and look at 16th Street, I grew up in that area. And there was black business all the way around that area.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, when I look at this thing called redevelopment of this area, what are you talking about?
Yeah. What does that word
Yeah,
really define?
yeah. What does it
Redevelop. Is it like
There you
the
go.
urban renewal program?
Exactly. What
What
does
does
it
urban
mean?
renewal mean?
Yeah.
Buying our property
That's
out,
right.
killing our commercial
Yeah.
districts, and leaving it with vacant land.
Yeah.
Vacant
Starving us of the
lots.
resources. Starving us.
Of the resources.
Yeah. Starving of the resource.
And I don't think the mayor is personally doing this.
No,
the
no.
Brayboys or anything
No,
like that,
no.
because he inherited a commercial strip on 16th Street.
So
Yep.
And yet he sold it.
I told
His daddy and uncle took
I was
years
there.
to develop
you. I
that.
was there.
And what a pride, what a sense of pride that should have been in his understanding.
That's history.
But along with this civil rights movement, we have lost something.
Sure.
We have lost a generation of people who don't understand the power of Black economics. You know, we want to take our dollar and spend it over there in that other neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We have lost the desire to spend the dollars in our own, so we don't appreciate our own neighborhood and what it was able to achieve. So when I was approached and said that the property was available on 16th Street for sale, I said, "What property?" They said,
It's a
"It's the
Welch.
Welch property.
Welch.
David Welch's property is up for sale." I said, "I can't
It's
believe it.
Welch.
The man just passed away." But that did happen.
That's what they do.
And he sold it to a not-for-profit program entity, not another business. So I just think that we have a time here in St. Pete where we have lost our history's value, where we don't really value that history,
Mm-hmm.
and we're seeking the approval and the appreciation of people outside of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
This movement to say we want to take the historical Woodson Museum and we want to go somewhere else with it. It's where it's supposed to be, in the
The
neighborhood.
neighborhood. In the neighborhood.
I can't believe that
I
you're
can say-
hitting the nail on the head so hard. You're knocking the hell out of that nail.
Hey,
That
you know,
is awesome.
today, listen, ELIHU Brayboy is 76 years of age. He understands his time on this earth is not as many years as he has already been here. Man, we got to get some things done, and we got to say it for what it is. We
Right.
cannot
Right.
play with it. We got to call a spade a spade.
Yep.
Okay. And the
Wow.
mayor may be Black, but that's the only thing that's similar in our thinking process, that he's a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Black man. But the thinking processes are totally different.
Mhm.
And yet I would think that his inheritance of witnessing his uncles and his father
Hard work.
running small businesses on 22nd Street for years,
Mm-hmm.
Welch's accounting. And his co-worker there, he has George Smith there. And George Smith daddy ran an accounting business for years on 22nd Street called Richard Smith Accounting Firm. And my father ran a funeral home business on Clark Funeral Home on 7th Avenue. So we are three sons of Black businessmen of the 22nd Street corridor. But man, we live in a different world today.
Mm-hmm.
I have been asking, why is it that we're the only ones saying what you just said? Until you just said it, we weren't hearing anybody else talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
We just did a podcast last week, really letting people know how we feel about that mayor that we have. And I got a lot of phone calls on that podcast, lots of phone calls. But I've asked people such as Maria Scruggs, she and I were talking, Maria, why is it that I'm the only one out here, or the Ray Tampa podcast is the only podcast out here that is speaking truth to power about that mayor?
Raider, one of the reasons is because you went through some life experiences. You were a part of the generation that got the jobs with the school system when they were hiring you because they wanted to hire more African-American teachers and administrators. And so there was a cultural appreciation for you. But what got lost is when they said that the best schools was outside of your own area. And got lost is we started putting teachers in the schools in our area that didn't have a love for the kids. If you don't have a love for kids, schools are just buildings. But when my wife went to Gibbs High School, the so-called segregated high school, so to call the school is supposed to be less than because it's not integrated, they had some powerful teachers who loved what they were doing, and they showed the love to the kids by making sure that they learned what they needed to learn and were academically high achievers. Gibbs High School was one of the best high schools in the state of Florida academically. But that's In fact, Mr. Emmanuel Stewart and them fought to keep Gibbs alive because they wanted to turn Gibbs into an elementary school. Like they did all the other black high schools all over the state of Florida. Gibbs is one of the few. Gibbs in the school in Orlando. I'm trying to think of the name real quick. Jones High School is one of the few high schools that still exists from the pre-integration to integration state. Were they schools that were bad? No, there were schools that was taking the resources from them, and you took the resources from the community, and that's what's going on.
Brayboy, you equated the fact that I got an understanding of what's going on because I had an opportunity to get a teaching job right out of college, which I did. I actually chose where I wanted to work. But I have a better understanding because of my life experiences, as you first stated. I lived on 9th Avenue South, right over near Jordan Elementary School across the street.
Yeah.
My dad owned a business in one of the properties that you own now. What is Lorraine's?
Yeah.
My dad owned a fish market in that location.
Okay.
I mentioned that before. My brother, older brother, used to shine shoes up there with Hoosie on 22nd Street. It's just so much history about 22nd Street and that whole area, Jordan Park area, that I'm aware of. So where I went to work as a teacher had nothing to do with my awareness.
You had your heart and your mind knew the value of your community. One of the things that hurt us was we were told that this education, get an education, and it will solve all problems. A lot of the black entrepreneurs taught their kids to go to school and get an education. Don't work hard like your daddy here in this business. But that really was not the right message. They needed an education, and they also needed to keep that business alive. But we chose one versus the other. So that's why in 2007, when you look down 22nd Street corridor, wasn't anything open but maybe a church and a barbershop, and a single church, a church barbershop, period. The business community had totally almost disappeared because we had talked ourselves out of it. We were told that if we just got this education, that everything else would be smooth sailing. But reality is, smooth sailing comes from hard work of a plan that you control. We don't control our jobs. They can lay you off tomorrow. But when you open up your business, you not only open up a business that serves the needs of people, but now you're hiring somebody. You're creating an impact. I am so proud of the businesses that took over the restaurant that we were operating as Chief's Creole Cafe. We had 10 employees, and we were very proud of that history. But now these businesses are hiring 50-some people over there. Same space, but more people are being employed, which is a great thing. So now the change has occurred on 22nd Street, going back the way we wanted to go. Oh my gosh, and instead of having a mayor that's our cheerleader, we got a mayor with stop signs.
He's ridiculous, no doubt about it. Russ, you wanted to say something?
Well, I have a friend, and he listens to this podcast almost all the time. And one of the things he would tell me is, why are you guys so hard on Ken Welch? He would tell me. This guy would tell me. And I said, there's one word that I just want you to go and define. The word is accountability. Just define what accountability is. And then you can understand this show. We are not trying to talk against Ken Welch, no kind of way whatsoever. In fact, I told Ray, I was very disappointed because when Ken came over to become mayor, I was so glad, elated, because he was from this area. His family was from this area. Everything about Ken Welch was black capitalism to me. You know what I'm saying, Brayboy? Yeah. So when he became mayor, you talking about somebody that was elated? Hell, I was. Yeah, big time. And I talked about it. But eventually, something happened. What the hell happened, I don't know. You see? And I remember Ken saying this right now. He is saying, You see, did baseball get tied up without any development? I don't know. So, because we start pushing baseball, we start put, and we just let 22nd and 16th Street just go like hell. We talk more about damn baseball than the development of a black area called the gas plant area. It was a big letdown, and it's still a big letdown to me today, Brayboy.
And we don't need
Yeah.
a baseball team to
Yeah.
turn that area around.
Right.
No.
That's a desirable area with or without baseball.
Yeah.
But it looked like to me that the mayor was doing everything he could to keep that team happy, and he
Yeah.
didn't get it done.
Yeah.
And now I don't even hear any plans about it. He's not even talking.
I don't know where we go.
But the point of it is, he's not addressing why that land was taken from the black
Sure.
community in the first place,
Sure.
which was to create jobs for the kids and the grandkids of those people that sold their property to the city at a very low rate. Ray, did you know that this may not surprise you, but the appraisals on those properties was lowered intentionally,
Yeah.
so that these people did not get their real value of their land, but they were told that they were committing to our eminent domain, a sacrifice for the greater good of the St. Petersburg area.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, so now here we are. Look at the greater good.
None happened.
An empty stadium, a parking lot that's empty,
No grocery store.
no grocery store. Drugs are still in the streets that they promised would be gone if we gave up the land because the baseball was going to eliminate drugs and crime. Didn't happen.
I want to go back to the property that you used to own.
Yeah.
And the fact that the mayor selected a firm other than yours. Are you in a position to share with us 3 or 4 major differences in your proposal and the one Welch selected? Now, you've already talked about one in terms of rental units versus home ownership.
Yes.
Give me 3 more differences.
We were going to have a first floor commercial development that included a grocery store and a laundromat.
There you go.
By the way, the community has 0 laundromats. Okay? Not everybody's got a washer and dryer in the home.
Right.
Truly.
So that's a need in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we already know, in fact, we had an agreement with St. Petersburg Free Clinic. They are a supplier of food for pantries and food clinics all over the place. They were going to do a low-cost grocery store to bring food to the food desert.
Nice.
That's what he turned down. He turned the food program down. He turned the laundromat program down. And he turned down the home ownership program. So now what we're trying to do with our proposal is create a synergy. We want people coming to the community to spend money and live, and also work and play in the same area.
Right.
So, you know, we have not been desired. We're not the desired clientele when a business opens up downtown St. Pete. They don't say, well, we would like to get the majority of the black community to come down here and support our business. That's not what they're saying. And in fact, if we show up in too many numbers, please, they get nervous.
Please.
Like when all of you want to go to the movie theaters when they first opened up Sundial development. Oh my gosh, they got so scared they called the police and there's a problem here. All these teenagers, all these black teenagers around here, and we need the police here immediately. So we're not highly desired outside our community. So what? I can't be mad at them if they don't want to associate with my kids or my grandkids. What I need to do is make sure there's a business in my community that supports my kids and my grandkids.
Right. That's what Martin Luther King, that's what he spoke of. Martin Luther King on his last, that's what he spoke
Or that's what got Martin Luther King killed.
Talking about that.
Right, he's still be alive today, maybe. But when he switched the switch and went to economic talks,
at the
and
end.
he says a man deserves his pay. When he says we need to start talking about our dollars and cents on how we spend this money. When he said don't get on that bus in Birmingham no more until we get them to come to the table.
That's what got him killed.
After they came to the table, he went from Birmingham to Memphis. Memphis was his last stop. But he was on a whole nother march.
Economics.
He wasn't marching about let me sit at the counter.
No, economics.
He was talking about we need more money in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Final point, we're at the end. I understand that Mayor Welch repeatedly requested campaign donations. from you and your wife, but failed to return phone calls once he was elected.
Hmm.
Is this true?
Well, let me just say this. As Russell Cato said, we were elated that he was running.
Yes.
Hmm.
We thought he had a strong chance of winning compared to the experience of the other person he was running against. So we were all in.
That's right.
So we had a couple of appointments, but let me just say this. You have an appointment in January to discuss an issue, and the next time we couldn't get an appointment was July. Heck, a lot can go on between January and July.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's the way we were received.
Got it.
All right. There's a lot to be said about what you just spoke of. I had a whole 2 minutes I could have gone, but we're at the end, and I want to thank our
That's
guests,
good.
Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy, for being here. You were spirited in your discussion, and I appreciate that. As always, I want to thank my two co-hosts. A job well done, as always. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for tuning in to the Ray Tampa podcast, and ask that you do so each and every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. on 99.1 FM, The Bird. And you can also go to YouTube, type in the Ray Tampa podcast, and you can see them all. And with that being said, last thing, please register to get your mail-in ballot sent to you. Call the Supervisor of Elections office. Once again, with all that being said, good evening.